going, everyone? I'm Brandon Bell. I'm down at the Sampson Theatre in Penn Yan, New York, hanging out with John Christensen. Off in the back, we've got Dean Napton. Going to be asking some questions about the theater today. John's going to take us on a tour. The Sampson Theatre was built in 1910 as a vaudeville house. 1919, it took over some changes, became a silent movie theater. Yeah. It officially closed down in 1929. It actually hasn't reopened as a functioning theater since 1929. 2017 now, we're trying to raise awareness that this place is still here and it's still standing, and I don't think it's going anywhere for a long time. So the wonderful people at the Penn Yan Theater Company, PYTco, are raising funds. I'm trying to contribute to the cause and get this place up and running again. So John, Dean, I'll let you guys take it away. If you want to show us around, tell us a little bit of history about the Sampson Theatre.
We're just inside the garage door that you saw in the exterior shot. Looking down at the stage, the original stage of the Sampson, the ramp that you see in front of you was installed when it became a car dealership, an automobile garage, which I think, Dean, was a Ford garage, wasn't it?
Correct.
And so they poured this concrete ramp with some wooden ramps on the other side of it above the original seating floor that was also poured concrete. That, of course, when this renovation begins, this will all be removed. So ahead of you, you see the proscenium arch beyond what was a false ceiling installed when it was a car dealership. And above that, you see the original tin ceiling, which has obviously seen better days and much needed repair. And in the ceiling, you might be able to see the original electric fixtures, which were simply bulbs installed in sockets right at the ceiling itself. But electric light was so new and novel at the time that bare bulbs were considered, quite desirable to be seen. So you'll see the original seating floor, the step-down seating where all the seats were installed. You can still see some of the screw holes where the anchors were. There's that ramp that I talked about that was poured to allow cars to be taken up onto what's the original stage. Down here behind Brandon, you can see what was part of the original box seats on the lower level. Above that, there's a white line you can see in sort of that peachy colored wall. That was the floor of the upper box seat. And above that, there was actually a third level. So 1, 2, and 3. And above that was empty space. We hope eventually to turn that into a theater organ loft on this side and the other side. At the end of this aisle, there are steps that go down into the original orchestra pit, and from there, steps that go down into the dressing room basement. The theater had been renovated in 1918, 1919, as we mentioned, to become a silent movie theater. But because of the sight lines, those box seats were no longer necessary. You obviously couldn't see the screen, and they were removed. And then years of weather and neglect took care of the rest of it. So this was one of the 2 original balcony stairs. The other side has been removed. And you're coming out onto what is the remainder of the original balcony. It was cut back, as I said, years ago because of the sight lines, but also again cut back to allow this false ceiling to be installed when it was a car dealership. There on the balcony seats, of course, all the seats have been removed. We use it for storing our electrical equipment. You can see the stenciling up on the walls. That was what was put in 1918, 1919 in the redecoration. And if you step out this way, you can see how they cut off the original upper balcony and closed it off so that it's not visible the way it was before.
See over there where there's a hole in the wall where they blocked it off.
And on the opposite side, again in that plaster, you can see the ghost of the stairs that originally went down to that top level box seat. So you can see the way the balcony actually slanted down and allowed people to see the stage above the heads of the people seated in front of them. Yeah, it was quite a raked balcony. So, and of course here you can see the top of the proscenium arch. Again, that's not the way it looked originally. This was from the silent movie era. And of course you can see the years of weather damage. We do have a new roof on the building. It's in good shape and it keeps the weather out now.
Awesome.
But there's a lot of repair work to do. This tin ceiling can be replicated. There are companies that produce them and save the old ones. And of course we've got the same balcony and box seat arrangement over on this side. Behind you is the projection booth. That will eventually become, again, a projection booth and the technical booth for the theater. The upper balcony will be opened up again, but will only be used as a tech balcony for lighting and sound.
Right.
And of course the suspended ceiling, the original suspended ceiling, and all these rods will be removed. Interesting changing times that originally this theater, which at times held as many as 1,200 people, there was literally one bathroom. And I mean one toilet, one sink in one little understairs bathroom. And that was it.
See if you can see in here. Tiny bathroom.
Now, until this time, we've been using the Sampson mostly as a warehouse and workshop to build sets. Warehouse for set pieces and props, and only recently have we found other places for this to be. Our project was held up for several years because of the flood in 2014. The flood water here reached the level that was 3 feet above the stage. And of course, everything that was in here had to be removed. All the mud had to be taken out, had to be cleaned. And then eventually, the borrowed space that we were in, we had to bring everything back. Well, now we have permanent space for most of our sets, and we've been able to empty the theater to get it ready for the first stages of renovation. We're going down the steps now into the original orchestra pit. And of course, behind you, Michael, if you want to pan back, you can see that ramp again that we talked about. This, of course, will be removed, and the orchestra pit brought back into use. Right above Michael's head here, you can see the trench that was metal-lined trench for the footlights, original electric footlights that fit in here and shone up at the faces of the actors to help light them. That probably won't be part of our plan. It's sort of an old-fashioned way, but it is interesting to see that this old relic of the vaudeville stage still remains underneath the floor that they laid for the car garage.
I wanted to point out the stenciling all the way up is not original, correct?
Right.
But this here, the plaster, is part of the original Sampson Theatre. I guess it was painted gold.
Yes, it's raised plaster work. And it was a color combination. We think it was sort of a sage green and gold leaf pattern. And that, of course, was the frame for the whole stage and was much more ornate. The painting that you see farther up, that's more crude, we believe was probably done when this was used as a miniature golf course during the Depression. Now we're going to continue down into what were the dressing rooms originally in the basement level. The graffiti that you see on the walls is just luminescent chalk that we have put in. One of our big fundraisers is an annual haunted house. And so we bring people down in through the catacombs, as we call them, of the Sampson, and scare the heck out of them. These were all the original dressing rooms. Some of them still have the numbers above the doors. Let's see if I can get my light on again. And of course, during the flood, this was full, well above the ceiling. This was all filled in with water and mud. And it took a year and a half before the mud dried out enough so that we could scrape it all out and shovel it out into a couple of dump truck loads.
Like by hand.
Yeah, and we had a lot of dedicated people. Yep. Behind Brandon is the original stage door where actors came in, entered for their dressing rooms. And then the opposite direction is the entry to the real basement of the Sampson, and you can see some of the structure of how it was poured and created.
And the Sampson Theatre is on the historical register for...
Yes, it's one of the first poured concrete buildings in the state, actually one of the first poured concrete buildings in the country.
Oh, wow.
Here you'll see the pier system that was used, pier and arch system that was used to support the floor of the auditorium you see above you. These arches were made with wood forms and then the concrete poured on top of them. This is non-reinforced concrete, so it is very thick, and there are a lot of piers because it didn't have that cross tensile. You will see above you iron pipes that carried the weight between the arches. As rusty as they are, they're still considered quite structurally sound. Below you, on the floor, you'll still see some of the mud left over from the flood. And even down here, there's still dampness.
Oh, wow.
And all of this still has to be cleaned out and removed. Over here, Mike, you'll see the original heating system, a boiler.
What?
This boiler came from a Keuka Lake steamboat. It was brought in through the doorway that you see over there, and there are still scrapings on the wall from where they dragged the boiler through. And of course, this is going to be removed. But for a more modern heating system, you can see the coal firebox underneath, and coal just filled up this whole area.
This model isn't efficient anymore?
I don't think so. It's kind of hard to get parts.
That was gaslight?
No, this was electric. This theater was built as an electrified theater. And fear of fire in those early theaters was a very genuine concern. So an electrified theater was considered to be very safe rather than gas lights. So costumes didn't catch on fire, curtains didn't catch on fire.
Entire theaters did
The entire theater being fireproof because it is a concrete structure.
Yeah.
It was considered to be one of the safest places in the whole county. Over here behind Michael, you can see some of the bench seats. And of course, these have been damaged by floods over the years, but these were the seats that were installed in 1918-19 as the silent movie house up in the balcony, and it just allowed for more seating. We're going to find some way of reusing the frames and rebuilding some of them, perhaps for lobby seating, and some of the historical fabric of the building.
That was done when they had the car dealership in here. They were trying to figure out a way. They put the ceiling through. Their idea was to try to keep the heat in when they had the car dealership in here. So they put the ceiling through, suspended ceiling, and then they wanted to have a heating plant put in there. So they poured a concrete base, chopped a hole in the floor, and they were going to run a heating plant down here to help heat that first floor.
Yeah. And of course, wasn't done very sensitively.
The hole you see is the original chimney that goes completely up to the roof.
Oh, really?
And then up on the back of the stage, there's a concrete platform on the stage. they had a coal stove, a heating unit, that's how they kept the stage area warm.
Yeah.
And that fed, the exhaust was right up through that chimney. There's an outlet up above that.
The rough chiseling that they did over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to do a music video down here.
This is the stairway that actors and actresses would use to access the stage. So from the dressing rooms down here, this was how they accessed and went up when they had to make their appearances. So over here on this wall that you see the whitewash, you can really see the layers of concrete that were laid in the forms, time after time, layer after layer, rising up, and you can see the proscenium arch from the stage side looking out into the theater. And there's a steel lintel across there, but then above that and several layers of the concrete, you'll see a brick arch that was laid in. And that was believed to carry the weight of another story and a half or 2 stories of poured concrete above that, and to carry the weight out to the outer sides of the proscenium.
All right, folks, so there you have it. That was a tour of the Sampson Theatre in Penn Yan, New York. Like I said, it was opened in 1910. It was a vaudeville house. 1918, 1919, it became a silent movie theater. Closed down in 1920 and has not been a functioning theater since 1929.
Yes.
It was car dealership, mini golf course. Apparently they practiced lacrosse on the stage. They've done all kinds of crazy stuff with it, and now we're trying to turn it back into a functioning theater. I'm going to let John talk about some of his favorite Snapple facts about the Sampson. Teddy Roosevelt's been here. The Ray Bolger, the scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, and all kinds of other cool stuff. So take it away, and then we'll show you the plans of what's expected to come for Sampson Theatre.
Now, 1910, when the theater opened, that same year, Teddy Roosevelt, as the former president of the United States, was here. And this theater, which we're planning on having approximately 400 people as having seats, on that day when Roosevelt was here, there were 1,200 people in the theater.
In one bathroom.
Standing room only. Unfortunately, we have absolutely no images, no plans, no photographs, nothing that show us what the interior of the Sampson looked like. Only 2 small segments of plaster trim work that were quite ornate, but those are the only ones that are left. We would love to make the Sampson look the way it did, but our main priority is for the Sampson to be a modern, functioning theater and to become the performing arts center for Yates County. Other than the schools, we have no live performing arts space. So with this theater renovated rather than restored and brought back to use, plus the addition of the annex next door, which will give us space for a modern lobby, handicapped accessible bathrooms, plus studio and rehearsal space on 2 floors above that. It will give us more backstage space. It will allow us to have an elevator for freight and personnel use. That has to be our priority, is to make sure that the Sampson is a functioning theater first. After that, we will do our best to be as historically accurate as we can. The structure itself is one of the first board-frame buildings, is historic and will be kept that way and will always be part of that history. But within the theater itself, with the change in technology, with the change in the size of the people, we're not going to be able to be exactly what the Sampson was originally. We also have some interesting stories, as you mentioned, that we have the history of Ray Bolger having performed here as the one of the vaudeville acts. He was a famed dancer and singer and comedian, which you saw in The Wizard of Oz. He did all sorts of shows. We had minstrel shows, which were all the rage here in the teens and 20s. But during the silent movie era, the music for the films was provided by a spinster lady named Eunice Frame. She was never married. She was African American. But this space has excited a lot of interest in psychic circles, let's put it that way. And there are many people who have visited this theater who are firmly convinced that the spirit of Eunice Frame remains here in this theater looking over this space. And she is joined by the spirit of the man who built the theater, Dr. Frank Sampson. This theater was built after the Lyceum Theater, which was nearby in the adjoining block. After that theater burned in 1907 or 1908, I can't quite recall. But again, that was an earlier theater. It was wood framed, it was gaslit, and so this theater, poured concrete, all electrified, was considered to be the ultimate in safety. It was built in response to that fire, which was one of the more spectacular fires in Penn Yan's history. Ultimately, we want this theater to live again, and we want it to live for many, many more years, keeping live theater and community performance and bring professional performances here to Yates County and to Penn Yan. Here we have sort of a progress of what we think the project will run. In this top right corner, you'll see a postcard of the original Sampson Theatre. There's an early Model T in front of it. You'll see the porch roof over the original main entrance and the very small theater sign there above that. There was also a flag stand, a flagpole on the top of the theater, and that was used to show when the show was coming into town. This is the current appearance of the Sampson on the outside. We also own this property that's between the Sampson and the Wagner restaurant. That will eventually be infilled with our annex. This will be a new building built in the architectural style of Elm Street originally, with this, what they call a hyphen. It's a space between to separate the original historic building from the new building. It's to keep it distinct and separate from something else. And here's another perspective of what the restored Sampson will look like. The exterior of the Sampson is going to be made to look like it did in 1910. On the hyphen, we will include more lighting with the Sampson. The theater will possibly have a marquee at some point. This three-story building built next to the Wagner restaurant will have our modern lobby in there with handicapped accessible restrooms. And then above that, there will be studio and rehearsal space that will be used both by community theater and by the theater department at Cuca College. This is being done in hopes of making a real performing arts center, since the needs of the performing arts have changed since 1910. Our plans here are the interior floor plans. Here you'll see the basement level with restored or recreated dressing rooms, workshops down below, the catacombs there, which will become the service rooms and storage. Then we're on the main stage floor, the restored stage, the auditorium, the seating with restored side box seats. Here will be backstage area. There will be an area cut through to the wall of the original stage, so increased backstage area, elevator, handicap bathrooms, modern lobby with an elevator and stairs going up to the upper level. Here's the balcony level, balcony restored with box seats as well. Again, a raked balcony to preserve sight lines. The stairs from the lobby coming up, bathrooms up here as well, and part of our rehearsal studio space. Again, approaching the size of the stage space so that full scale rehearsals would be able to be done. Then the third floor, which would also include studio space, and then that tech balcony that we saw above, that older balcony above, will not be used for theater seating, but will be used for lighting and sound. This is the plan that we have with Richard Osgood, our architect from Barrow Architecture in Rochester. And these are design plans rather than engineering plans. That will be another step as we progress. This is a recreated photograph. Current photograph of the Sampson Theatre then has been digitally formed to show the original parapet roof, parapet wall here, pardon me. And then they've creatively put in some movie posters to show some of the films that might be shown when we also open to show vintage films. So that is the hope for the Sampson Theatre, and we are confident that that is the future of the Sampson Theatre. Thank you.
All right, so if you want to be involved or contribute to the restoration of the Sampson Theatre and help PYTco out, I am actually having a fundraiser event on Saturday, June 3rd. It's going to be all day long, starting at noon. It'll probably go till 9 or 10. From noon to 3 or 4, it's going to be a family fair. We've got a bounce house, petting zoo, obstacle course, face painting, all kinds of other fun stuff. Eastside Grill is going to be providing food. Seneca Farms is going to be involved. We've got a sponsorship from PYTco College now. At 4 o'clock, I've got bands coming through from all over. Heavy metal bands, hard rock bands, acoustic, hip hop, pop punk. We've got Franz Solo starting the show. The Good Left Undone from Pennsylvania. Inevitable Revolutions, metal band from Pennsylvania. For the Dead Travel Fast, Edgar Allan Poe inspired metal band from Bath, New York. After them is Lilac Knight from Binghamton, they're pop punk. We've got Evan Dillon and his wily bandits doing what they do best, pissing some people off and giving other people the night of their life. Dream Skill, which is Dustin Brown, he's a Penn Yan local, Dream Skill in Backwoods. And our main attractions are going to be Supermassive, hard rock from Elmira, and Divinex, instrumental progressive metal from Rochester, New York. It's $10. All of the proceeds are going to be donated to PYTco and hopes to bring the theater back to life. And like I said, it's Saturday, June 3rd, right here in Penn Yan at the Fireman's Field. You can look it up on Facebook at Save the Theater, Penn Yan, or PYTco fundraiser. Thanks a lot.